Hey everyone, welcome back to another live rapid video. So I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I think it's been a year since I even logged onto this account. So I'm just going to play two rapid games. I'm gonna divide it to two separate videos. So yeah, I haven't been posting in a while, so I do want to provide some content. And I've been getting a lot more free recently, so I think I will be able to do more research on the openings that I promised, such as a couple of weapons with white against the Sicilian, and other black repertoire openings. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. Our rating is, I think, 1926, and our opponent is rated 2055. And for the sake of this, of this entire series, I'm just going to be playing my typical repertoire, which is the classical Sicilian, which I've been playing for almost 2 years now, I think. So knight f3 signifies that they want to go for the open Sicilian, but bishop c4 is definitely a sideline. And let's see, our opponent is our opponent like 9 years old? That's actually crazy. And yeah, so basically with bishop c4, I mean, the main moves in this position are like either d4 to open up the position or bishop b5 check, the Moscow variation. But bishop c4 is quite a weak move, but something quite new actually. So the idea behind this is that they want to put some pressure on this diagonal, but we can see that typically after we play the move e6, that there's actually no pressure there. And so if we play the move e6 now, then they can still transpose to an open Sicilian with d4. And so for that reason, I think I will start up with the move knight f6, seeing that there are no possible sacrifices on f7. Knight f6 is very logical. If they ever push e5, then I'm not afraid. I'll just take, knight takes, and then because there's a threat on f7, I'll just play a move like e6. And the bishop does get closed off on this diagonal, but it always has potential on like this other diagonal. So I'm not really afraid of that. If I play e6 now, then it may give white the option of playing c3 and d4, while after knight f6, I'm also giving white like a dilemma here. If they want to commit with a move like d3, which means that they're gonna have to spend another move to play the move d4, meaning that yeah, like this entire setup is not very good if white doesn't open up the center. And meanwhile, after knight c3, we notice that this pawn is the c pawn is actually being blocked. And so I think in this position, it's a very good thing that I managed to provoke the move knight c3, so that c3 and d4 cannot come very quickly. And so here I'm thinking of a couple of moves, either thinking of knight c6 just to develop towards the center, which after d4, it can actually just transpose into the classical Sicilian, and then queen b6 is the best move in that position, the Benko variation. Oops. Or I can play the move e6 now. However, I think knight c6 is very logical because I may want to keep the option of this pawn being flexible on e7, and I think I can play e6 whenever I want. There's really no threat in that position, so knight c6 is very logical. And seeing that I'm down a bit on time, I'm gonna play knight c6 quickly and just play this position. I think they will just castle, after which I can play the move e6, just play bishop e7 and the castles. But after d4, I'll just simply take. Knight takes d4 is definitely the move, and then queen b6. So this is the Benko variation. And after, there's like a move like bishop e3, which sacrifices the b2 pawn, which can lead to a very interesting queen sacrifice if played absolutely correctly, which is actually good for black. Or the best move here is actually knight b3. Knight c6 is also an interesting move. I'm forced to play b takes e6, because if queen takes e6, then there's going to be bishop e5 with the skewer onto the king here. And bc6 is also nice because it keeps the b file open, possibly for rook b8. There's some pressure on b2, and so they're daring me actually to take it right now. But actually, I can simply play the move e6 and then play bishop e7 and castle. So the decision is, should I take the pawn on b2 now, allowing rook b1, queen a3, and for them to take over the b file, or should I just play e6 now? Now, actually, I think e6 is a good move, but queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3 seems to be quite good as well, because if they ever play a move like rook b3, then I can always hit the bishop with a tempo here with queen c5. So actually, I think I will go ahead and do that. I just need to consider what happens after knight a4, queen a3. Maybe after rook b1, there might be some problems. Actually, here So queen b2, knight a4, queen a. I can actually just read with queen e5 also, attacking some weaknesses here. So I'm not too concerned about that. If they castle, then maybe even bishop g4 or even knight g4. Yeah, so this is a dilemma. Should I just go with the simple path, or should I play queen takes b2, which is very testing. So queen b2, knight a4. Oops, queen b2, knight a4. I can even play queen d4, actually, hitting the bishop as well. But then they can play c3 and then I take the pawn. So I think that seems to be very good. I'll just go ahead and take the pawn. I think it's definitely not the move. Queen a3 now. And now if they hit my queen with rook b3, I have this move queen c5, which is very convenient, hitting the bishop as well. Then next I can even consider just e6, e6, bishop e7, and castles with a good position, I think. e6, I do need to consider bishop e3, queen a5 looks good, so I'll just play e6. Bishop e6 is also possible, attacking the rook, but I need to consider that what happens, you know, if I with this bishop. So I'm just going to give my bishop on f8 here a square on e7 to develop bishop e3, and then now I was thinking queen a5. And if I simply continue with bishop e7 and castle next, they don't have any threats on the position. For example, e5 is always covered twice here, so I'm doing very well, I think. And if a move like bishop f4 targeting this pawn, then I can even consider e5, followed by bishop e7 and bishop e6, hitting the rook with the tempo. So I think I'm doing very well here. Bishop d2 is possible, but okay, now I'll just play bishop e7. And yeah, I really don't see what is threatening. They're threatening now discovery onto the queen, so I'll drop back the queen to c7. And we see now that this pawn on c6 actually is very useful, controlling a lot of central squares, also preventing knight b5. So I'll just castle now. Oh, they offered a take back, so I think that was a mouse slip. Yeah. Queen e1 is the idea. Okay. Now I think I can either play d5 or I can play castles. If I castle now in f4, and if I go for a5, trying to go bishop a6, maybe that's a reasonable idea. Or I can play d5 now. And if bishop f3, then I can castle. And if e5, I go knight e7 with some squares to use. So I think I'll start with d5, ed5, ed5, castle, ed5. Yeah, I think there's no problem with the d5 right now, so I'm gonna start out with this move, putting some pressure on white. Now this move is quite committal because it does weaken c5 square, but as long as a knight doesn't land on c5 here, I think I'm doing quite well. Now I also opened up this bishop's diagonal, so I think I'm doing very well here. g3 is an idea maybe to prepare bishop f4, but now I castle. Bishop b4, I can play even rook e8. Queen a, bishop a5, okay, interesting. Now I can play queen d7 maybe. I don't think there's a problem with this move. If I went queen d6, maybe bishop b4 would have been annoying. So I only have one square for the queen, realistically. I don't really want to venture out, but... Maybe queen f4 was also possible. I should have given that some thought, attacking the knight. But this is very safe, queen d7. I can play just rook e8 now. And if takes, I take back with the rook, so that there is no, you know, if I play queen takes e7, then rook e3, maybe hitting the rook and queen. So I just play queen takes, rook takes here. And now they want to infiltrate with knight c5. So I can play the move knight e4 here, I think. And if f3, I can play knight d6. I can also play queen e8 here. And then knight e4, also reasonable. I can also play queen f5 actually. So knight e4, f3, knight f6, knight c5. Then they make a weakness with f3, so I think I'll play knight e4. If they play f3, they basically create a weakness on the long diagonal. So I'll bring the knight back to f6, knight c5, queen e8, with some pressure on this. Or even queen d6 is reasonable. There are a lot of good options here, and I think that this move makes a lot of sense, just hitting the knight. And they have some problems with this bishop being loose, so queen d4 cannot be played which centralizes the queen, but it drops just the bishop. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy here. Bishop d... No, they have to deal with this knight. So now maybe c5, or even like bishop a6 coming to c4. Bishop a6, c4 looks very nice. Now this knight is kind of like under pressure. Yeah, with a lot of pressure here, so I can even play rook e8 next. And I think my position's actually just technically winning here. They really have no counterplay. They played way too fast there, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna have to like speed up a bit. I can first off take on here, but they're also attacking this guy. So I can just trade off the bishops. Maybe even play like rook e8, very reasonable. But maybe they want knight d4. That's not a concern, I think. Knight d4 threatening this. I can just give my king some loop with g6. Even now, I'll just play g6 to cover the squares. And now this knight is even like misplaced, you see. I can play h5. And then the knight can't come back, so they're gonna have to play like rook f2. h5 looks very annoying here. I'm threatening to trap the knight. And it's not easy to find a good square. If rook f2, then I just play rook e1. So I'm thinking that maybe rook g1 is the only move. But that just loses the knight, so I don't know what their point is. Yeah, so this is a very strange game. Okay, they want that move, yeah. Very reasonable. I can play knight h5 now, because I see that this square on f4 is weak. And so knight h5 here. Queen d4. I have rook, yeah, knight f4. Threatening some stuff. Okay, I play this move. Take over some squares. If knight g4. Maybe I have like rook e2. Yeah, rook e2 looks very nice. I can also just trade off some pieces, actually. Or even play queen f6. Queen f6 looks nice because I want to maintain some dark square control. So if they take on f4, then I'll have like full dark square control. And if they don't, then possibly this knight is just very powerful on f4. So this is a very nice position already, up a pawn and full control over the position. So rook e2 makes a lot of sense. And now maybe h3 is a threat. Maybe h3 is a threat here. Or even queen g... Yeah, queen g5 is a direct threat, I think. And if rook f2... Then I can take... Not that simple. But now I can just take and then take here. Which is another pawn. And the king is like so weak. Yeah. So this is game over, I think. They might just resign, but they were definitely playing too fast there. Strange game. This is definitely a very careless... yeah, this player was too careless in the opening and middle game. Now I can just drop back with the queen to f4 maybe. Or even queen g3. Yeah, okay, queen g3, king f1, I don't see anything direct. So queen f4 threatens some stuff with like queen d2. And so I'm going to play this move. Queen d2 is a serious threat. So rook e1, queen d2 just wins for me. And otherwise... Here, king g1. Yeah, I can take this pawn. He can go rook b7. But I can check and then queen f4 back, yeah. So I'm going to... Actually, wait. I can also just play king g7 now. Rook e1's very safe, actually. I'll just trade off some pieces. I'll just trade off some pieces and then defend my pawns. Go king g7, I think. Queen d7 may be a threat now. I'll just go king g7, activate the king. If queen d7, queen g3, king g1. Okay, The question is, if I trade off queens, does this like win still? I'm sure it's winning, but like, do I need to complicate the matters like that? So if I can keep my extra pawns, that would be nice, but takes. F5. C3, king G7. Yeah, I don't know what this majority if it's going to be enough. Because if I have only a majority in the center here, and I don't have a majority on the other side, it's not going to be that simple. Play queen e7 now. Oh, he may go king h3 actually. And then I can play c5 maybe. Shoot. I'll play f6. Oh shoot, I blundered this pawn. Ah, shoot, I should have just like went king g8 or something. Yeah, this was not good. I definitely blundered this. Yikes. Yeah, I just blundered that pawn for no reason. I'll play c5 to get my pawns rolling, but I'm not happy with my last move. Yeah, just like something like king g8 would have been good. Play g5 to get some extra space. f4, now I have queen c7 maybe. Queen c6 is a bit annoying. They heard me. Okay, d4. Yeah, it gets a bit loose when I start pushing the pawns up the board, so I do need to be careful still. Here. Here, if queen b5, I have queen c7, still defending everything. He wants queen g8 maybe. Yeah, I definitely made this more complicated for myself, but I have this check and a queen e5, yeah. Forcing the trade of queens, which should be winning. Yeah, this is winning because I think I have a majority on this side of the board. If he goes king g3, c5, king f2. There. Yeah, I'll play c4 first, so he's forced to play king f2. Maybe g4 is a move. Takes. There. No, I'll not give away a pawn here. I think this is going to be trivial if I go over this and then just try to pick up these pawns, yeah. So a bit unnecessary, honestly, for me to complicate the situation like this, but this is good enough with an extra pawn and my king just being way more active. So I tried to wrap the game up too quickly. Even like e4 is good. With takes, and then my king takes this pawn in g4. And d3 can go here, and then just try to infiltrate with king f4, forcing him to eventually take on e4. Yeah, and with my king like putting a lot of pressure on this guy also, it's game over. c3, I just go d3, and then this pass pawn is a permanent pass pawn. So that's game over. Go king here, but I just go d2, king c2, and then there. King c2, and then king e2, and then I just promote. There. I win. And there are no stalemates, because he always has these squares. And that's a nice win. So I'm not sure what this player was doing, but they definitely played too fast. So reviewing this game, let's see if there are any interesting moments. So yeah, basically this move bishop c4 is not very common, but it has been recommended, I think, by a couple of people. Like I think Adiban recommends this in his e4 course. And it's actually, this version of bishop c4 on the third move is definitely better than other positions. For example, after knight c6, bishop c4 here doesn't make a lot of sense because we haven't committed with the move d6. And so, for example, the bishop gets quite vulnerable after moves like knight f6 and d5 very quickly. Let's say, for example, knight castles, even a6 here, threatening to play b5, and also just simply knight f6 and d5 next. So the bishop like is really restricted on this square and not really useful. But after d6, notice that after bishop c4, if we play the move e6 now, which is definitely a move, we have to spend another move another tempo to play the move d5 in advance because we've already committed with the move d6. So bishop c4 in this position is not that bad, but very nuanced. But a lot of beginners play this actually. Yeah. And so in this position after knight f6, the point is that I want to actually provoke this a concession basically. I want white not to be able to play the move c3 and d4 to occupy the center very quickly. For example, if I play e6 now, then maybe c3 followed by d4 is annoying, like knight f6, d4 here, or even, yeah, queen e2 followed by d4 next, maybe a bit annoying. So I play the move knight f6 to provoke something, so like white needs to play something to defend the pawn. And so either d3 here, which would mean that d4 is not really an option because that would waste another tempo, or knight c3, which was played in the game. And so now, because the c-pawn is blocked by the knight, it signifies that c3 and d4 is not really a plan. And so I played knight c6 here, and my opponent does enter the open Sicilian with d4. And actually, after cd4, knight d4, I played this move queen b6, which I recommended in my video on the Sozin variation. Yeah, and actually this position can be reached most commonly from the open Sicilian after d4. After cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, and bishop c4, then queen b6, then we reach the same exact position. But I guess the reasoning behind this move order is to say that white is basically saying that if you are a knight orf player normally, I'm going to play the move d4, so you exit your comfort zone, because knight orf players won't know this position because this is a position straight from the classical Sicilian. Meanwhile, it's very convenient for the classical Sicilian player because in this position, queen b6 just enters the normal lines. And so that's kind of basically move order trickery, queen b6. And here the best move is definitely knight b3. And the critical variation is after e6, bishop f4, knight e5, bishop e2, then bishop d7, preventing any knight a4, queen d2, preparing castles, bishop e7, castles, and then g4. I think something like this. This is one of the critical variations. Yeah, or even like bishop e3 back, followed by g4 next. So yeah, that's basically the main line that I know of. But instead they play the move knight takes e6, which is not very common, but it's definitely playable. However, I think I'm very happy here because the b file has been opened up with pressure on v2. And so I think if white wants to develop this bishop out to e3, for example, they're going to have to somehow make sure that the b2 pawn is not hanging. However, notice that this pawn on c6 actually controls a lot of squares, and so the knight cannot jump in. So I would say that black is doing very well here. And after bishop d2, I play the move queen takes b2 because I didn't see actually anything wrong with this move. Computer, I think, recommends bishop a6 here just to trade off the bishops and say that if you take, then now you're going to have to make a concession with, for example, trading the queens off because they can't, because white cannot castle at this moment. And so that's what was recommended, but queen takes b2. I just saw basically that in many lines, I can always drop the queen back to a3 and to c5, hitting the bishop with tempo. And so I didn't see anything wrong with this move, but I guess the computer said bishop b3 is quite annoying. I'm not sure what line, yeah, is best here after queen a3, something like this. But apparently e5 is very strong. So I guess I need to do a bit more research on this variation before I can comment on it. But yeah, essentially I didn't see anything wrong immediately, and so I played queen c5. Yeah, and after this position, I thought that my queen is quite safe. It can always come back to c7 if needed. For example, in the game, bishop e3, queen a5, and the queen drops back to c7. Yeah, avoiding any discovered attacks. And so here, queen e1 doesn't make a lot of sense, but I just play d5, and I think I'm completely fine here, just up a pawn. Takes, knight a4, very reasonable. So basically the only weakness in black's position is that, okay, maybe there are two weaknesses, this backward c6 pawn, and the weakness on c5, meaning that if white is able to occupy the c5 square and really stick a knight there, then it would be very good. But still, they're down a pawn, so it's not enough compensation, especially when both sides have the bishop here. So bishop a5, queen d7, and I don't really mind the exchange of bishops as long as I have active pieces in return. Also here, notably, I don't want to take with the queen because rook e3, yeah, just is unnecessary to allow. So rook e7, queen d1, and then I play knight e4, which is not best because I think it allows the move c4, undermining this my center, and it would be quite annoying to deal with this. But I just thought that after f3, basically I provoked a lot of dark square weaknesses, and I thought I would be happy here. But clearly f3 is not necessary. And here, even after knight c5, yeah, queen d6, and actually the knight cannot maintain itself on c5, so this was just a one-move threat. And after that, I just converted this position. I played h5, just getting more space, creating some luft also, and also taking over the dark squares here. King g1, and then I play this move, and I really take over the dark squares. And I think from this position it was pretty smooth, except for one moment during the game. After I win another pawn, queen e2, I trade the rooks off, which is okay. But in this position after king g7, which is a good move, and queen g4, I should have realized that there is actually no threat, and I played the move queen e7, which is very passive, allowing this check on d4. And so I should have realized that if I just advance the pawn to c5, there really is no counterplay. I can just advance the pawn to d4 next. And there's no counterplay for white. For example, if they try to win this pawn on h4, then I can just deliver a mate here on h1. And so the queen is actually really good on e1, which is why I shouldn't have dropped it back. And so I did mess up here by creating too many weaknesses, for example, g5 as well, just opening up my king position, allowing for the possibilities of any perpetual checks. So that was unnecessary. But still, my opponent blundered here with queen d5, leading to a winning endgame. So yeah, that's basically the outcome of this game. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the video. To this channel, and if you have any recommendations or suggestions for future videos, do let me know. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Bye.